Welcome to Make the Grade with the Success Doctor, Stephen Green, where you'll discover actionable strategies to help your student to reach their academic goals, to excel at standardized testing, and to plan for the college admissions process painlessly. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Green.
All right, folks, Steve Green here, the Make the Grade podcast. You know what? It is mid-January 2022. I don't know about you. Anybody feeling stressed? I tell you, the last year and 9 months has gotten me stressed. Trying to deal with it. I do what I can and stay busy and try to stay positive, but sometimes you got to go to the expert. And I am so happy to introduce everyone to Professor Pete Alexander. Pete, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Steve. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, listen, wait till you hear about Pete's bio. But all you need to know is, and you want to hang on, you want to sharpen your pencils, take some notes, and get ready to relax, because Pete is an expert in stress relief. Okay? Stress relief, just a couple minutes a day. I already feel more relaxed. We haven't even talked about it yet. I feel relaxed. So listen, Professor Pete Alexander, he inspires hard-driving leaders and other working professionals with over 100 innovative and effective stress release strategies that help them overcome their self-imposed obstacles and barriers to success. Hey, you know anybody else that talks about success on this podcast? I love him. We're already kindred spirits here, Peter. He's a seasoned professional, 35 years of experience with sales, marketing, and entrepreneurial experience. He has battled the negative effects of stress head on, has developed a trademark stress relief model that motivates his peers to take action in only a few minutes a day to experience immediate stress relief for yourself. Review his video blog series, and we'll talk about this, and his best-selling book. Man, we listen, this is about you, but we have a lot in common. I'm an author. I got a book. I got a blog. I got everything. Man, this is awesome. It's like talking to my clone. Yeah, the only other thing, Pete is friendly. He's humorous, and his customized approach relates well to his audiences, ensuring meeting planners to get full value for their organizations. He's an honor as a frequent guest on popular podcasts and radio shows. Woo!
Here we are.
Got a real celebrity in our midst, and a good-looking guy, handsome guy. He doesn't look stressed to me. If you're listening to this, trust me, he is looking relaxed and ready to go. So, Professor Pete, if I can call you that,
Sure.
How'd this start, man? It doesn't sound like you were always, sitting on the top of the mountain with the legs crossed saying "Om." So can you take us on your journey? Maybe, some of these things you had to deal with, how you got to the point where you are now as an internationally renowned best-selling consultant and expert on stress management.
Sure. You're absolutely right, Steve. I was absolutely the complete opposite for most of my life. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And so, growing up with a lot of different ugly stressors was something that just was normal day-to-day functioning. And then I went into my working life as an adult, and I continued to just work. And it wasn't until 2008 where stress actually started showing its ugly signs with me. Back then, I had a perfect storm of stressful activities that, it basically was very taxing both emotionally and mentally. And what ended up happening is I got diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes. The crazy thing is I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. I did what most of us would do, which is, continue burning the candle at both ends for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for your listeners who don't know what that is, basically
Sounds
my body.
bad. Sounds serious.
Oh yeah. In layman's terms, my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And what's crazy about that, back when I was diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, there's no diabetes in my family. And so all of a sudden I'm here having this disease, and I just said, I don't have time for this. And my body was definitely giving me all these signals continuously. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I ended up in the emergency room. And then even in the emergency room, I got transferred. When I was admitted to the hospital, my glucose numbers were so high that the medical grade glucometers could not read it.
So
Basically, the
you were
lab,
breaking the instruments almost. I mean, by the way,
basically
for those of you out there who are maybe don't know the science, a normal glucose level is going to be 80.
80 to
80
100.
to 100, right?
Right.
Milligrams per milliliter of blood or something like that, right?
Exactly.
And like three diabetic is considered, I think, 180,
It's
160.
pre-diabetes is about 125 to
All right,
130. And
yeah.
and
Now,
then
so if you're
diabetes is
breaking
above
the
that.
machine, you got a problem.
So with that perspective, thank you for
Yes.
that perspective. The hospital lab estimated that my glucose numbers were 800 to 1,000. And
So
it
10
was
times normal.
10 times normal. The glucometers in the hospital read up to 500. So all it was saying was high. And so they transferred me to ICU.
Oh.
First time in my life I was in ICU. In the emergency room, been there frequently as a kid, as an adult with sports injuries, bringing my kids in for injuries that they would have.
Yeah, ICU is another
That's a
mind state.
total different story. And
Yeah.
on the second day in ICU, the hospital staff were checking my blood every half an hour to an hour. And on my second day in ICU, I get a text from the person I was reporting to at that point. And this person says in the text at about 6 a.m., you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? This person knew had been in the emergency room and had
Warm
been
and fuzzy
transferred
guy.
to in ICU. And it was a very, very high profile project that I was working on. Well, what did I do? Instead of, what a surprise, I didn't have my work laptop with me in the ICU. So instead of just saying, I got to get better, I started trying to push the envelope of my phone to reschedule that webinar. And so at that point, the nurse on staff at that point, she goes ahead and takes my blood.
And it's back up again.
So yes, so my numbers had come back down they were roughly about 180 at that point.
So it's semi-normal.
So that's semi-normal. It's diabetic, but it's not concerning. Let's put it that way. And after she, so here's me sitting there on my phone stressing out to try and reschedule. She checks it, and it was like a 90-degree angle, and my numbers started just shooting right back up.
Wow.
And so what she says to me is, she says, this is a perfect stranger, basically. And she says, you realize that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place? And, it was like the epiphany moment for me, because, I'd had several.
When did you say it? Just to be clear, she meant the stress.
Oh yeah, yeah. But because she saw what I was doing on the phone.
Right. Yes.
And so it was like this bell had finally gone off in my head, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm trading my health for my career. And that's a really bad trade. And it got me to think, and I spent the rest of that day in my hospital bed just contemplating that and thinking, what do I have to do to change? And what I decided was that first of all, I had to get out of that position. So I was working for someone who was a micromanager, and micromanagers often don't trust their people. That's why they micromanage. And I was too old for that. I mean, come on. I was in my mid 50s. I didn't need that. So I decided to resign, and so I resigned the day after I got out of the hospital. And I went ahead and I just started concentrating after doing that, concentrating on different stress relief tools and techniques that I could utilize. And what I noticed was that not only did my stress go down, my glucose numbers as a diabetic went down, my weight went down, and my energy level went way, way up. It was as if I had discovered a fountain of youth. And here's the crazy thing, Steve.
Hmm.
If you look at a picture of me from 2008 when I first was diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, and you look at a picture of me now 14 years later, I look younger today than I did 14 years ago, other than having a little more gray hair. That is crazy. And that's what, a perfect, example of what stress does to us. Is it, and it's crazy because, if we just focus a little bit of our time, as you said in the opening there, about, just even a couple minutes a day, it can make a huge, huge difference.
Mm.
But we have to start, and we got to do it regularly.
Look, first of all, it's a very poignant story because we're lucky. If this hadn't gone a different direction, you could be you could be pushing up daisies. But
Yep.
there's a lot of different ways we could take this. But let me ask you a couple of things. So this is something, it's a little bit on the holistic side, right? You're in a hospital, you're on meters, you're on monitors.
Mhm.
The medicine isn't looking at your stress as much.
Mhm.
They're looking at your numbers, your 500, you're breaking the machine.
Mhm.
It was a person who had some sensitivity and saying, you know what, man, this stress is hurting you, Peter.
Mhm.
What do you think? Why do people get in denial about these things? Is it because of priorities in their life? I mean, look, if you got 2 kids, a mortgage, a dog, a couple cars, I mean, obviously one needs to put food on the table. So, I'm not going to say, hey, there's no such thing as no stress. It's how you handle it. It's how you approach it. But is there like any misconceptions or myths? Like, well, what's the biggest thing people maybe don't understand about the causes of stress or how you might manage stress? Is there one thing you could have just point out here?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. You're absolutely right that we, we can't avoid all stress, and actually, we shouldn't avoid all stress. It's more understanding that there is things called good stress or eustress,
EU
EUSTRESS,
stress. Yes.
eustress, which is things like if we're working on a project that we're really excited about or passionate about or something that we love doing,
Hmm.
that's the kind of stress that's good for us because we need to get things done.
Or
So it's
exercise even.
exactly, that's the kind of
Mhm.
stuff that is good stress. What we want to do is we want to avoid the negative stress. Some people call it distress, but
Distress.
what
Okay.
I have found in my experience is that there are basically 2 flavors of bad stress. One is rumination, and rumination is about thinking about something in our past that, let's say, we have guilt about either something we did or didn't do. And the problem is it's in the past. We can't change it.
Mm-hmm.
What we can do, though, is we can learn about the positive, the positive learnings about whatever it was in the past, and then we got to let it go. If we can do that and not let it fester inside of us, that is one area where we can do wonders for ourselves to reduce the negative stress impact on our body. The other one is anxiety about the future. So,
Yes.
you know, let's say we're worried about, an exam, or we're worried about a job interview, or we're worried about having a difficult conversation with someone,
Or a sales meeting.
or a sales meeting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one that could, radically alter, making your commission check or making your
Right.
numbers as a
Exactly.
business,
Yeah.
whatever that happens to be. What happens is if we stress about it and we start worrying about it going wrong, well, here's the problem. When we concentrate that negative energy towards something in the future, what we're doing is we're churning that negativity inside our bodies, and we often will manifest a negative outcome.
Mm.
That is really, really, really challenging for us because our inner critic starts saying, oh, it's going to go terrible, or what if I
Which makes
mess
you
up?
more
And
stressed, then you criticize
exactly, and
yourself
it
even more.
compounds and it compounds and it
It's kind of like a
compounds.
spiral like a logarithmic spiral in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. So,
Mm.
instead of looking at a future event from the negative, what if instead you visualize a positive outcome from that? So let's say, it's an exam that we have. Okay. How about
Yes.
visualizing getting an A grade on it? Or
Sure.
we have that sales call, and what do we, instead of worrying about blowing it, we actually imagine shaking the person's hand and saying, I'm going to sign the contract. Or giving a scary presentation. How about imagining 2 minutes after the presentation and people are giving you a standing ovation? All these kind of things. Or
Or
have
listening
even
or recording a podcast and getting 4
exactly
million people commenting on it.
right. Or how about having a difficult conversation with somebody, and instead of worrying about the negative outcome, thinking about, hey, that went really well, and imagine the other person's face,
Hmm.
in agreement with you.
So let me ask you, let me do this real quick. Let's take a
Sure.
quick station break. This is the Make the Grade podcast. Steve Green, my guest, Pete Alexander. We're talking about stress, but we're going to get to how to manage it in a second. This podcast is all about giving you tools, giving you activities to help accelerate your journey to success, parents with kids, entrepreneurs. So, Pete, we've talked about mindset. That's my word, but I think that's accurate. But mindset's only going to get you most of the way there, maybe, or some. There's got to be some physical stuff you do, right? Like some people say, take a walk, take a deep breath. Let's go that direction a little bit. Is there something you can counsel people on, or maybe something, a little activity you can lead us through that would enable people to experience? Because you're saying you can do this on a couple of minutes a day, right? All right.
Exactly.
So let me look at my clock here. I got about 14 minutes left in the podcast. Can you help us? Can you help us in less than 14 minutes?
Yeah. Well, I could give
Professor
you,
Pete.
let's do one that just
All right,
takes
let's
a
do it.
minute, and we can do it pretty much everywhere. The only caveat is anyone who's listening to this while you're
Yeah, if you're
driving your
driving, you
car,
might want to pull
please
over.
pull over
Yeah,
before
if
you
you're
do
operating
this one.
heavy machinery,
Right,
what are the other
exactly.
caveats?
Pause, put it on, but
Tricycle.
put this podcast on
Yeah, if you're on
pause.
the gym doing a bench press, you might want to put the weight on the rack.
Exactly. All right. Now,
All right,
assuming
so we've
that you've
cleared
done
that out.
that,
Our disclaimer is out there. So if you drop
right,
something or you pull your car, it's not Professor Peter Steve's fault. Okay, you're
exactly.
on.
So,
All right,
let's assume
press
that
us,
you're,
please. Go
yeah,
ahead.
let's assume that, let's take your classic sales call, important sales call as an example, or something that is about to happen for someone. And what you do is you sit in wherever you are, whether it's at your desk, in your car, wherever the place is. And what I want you to do is take a deep breath in, close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a lake, a park, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's the spa. Wherever it is, go there in your mind and take in all of your emotions and all of your senses. Now, what are you feeling? Are you feeling the sun on your face? Maybe the sand or the grass under your feet? And what do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? And what do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in and then take another deep breath in. And open your eyes. Simple.
There you go. Just that simple.
Simple grounding exercise. It combines deep breathing with visualization. and it can be done
Mm.
anywhere, basically.
Wow.
I know some of my friends and my clients have told me that they actually have gone into, like, if they're at work, in the office or something like that, actually go into a restroom and do
Or
it
it's
in a, and
quieter.
it's quiet. Yeah.
Let
So,
me tell you what struck me a little bit was the way that you well, maybe not purposely consciously, but brought all the senses in, right?
mhm,
Smell, feel,
yes.
emotionally, which I think is important because what it does is it gets everything. There's always that little thing. Even when you're relaxing, sometimes you don't let go of what's pushing you.
Mhm.
So that was really, really effective. And it's exactly your point. You can do it anywhere. Anybody can do it. You don't need equipment. You don't need a trainer. You don't need anything. I'm sure you got you got 99 more of these, right?
Oh, well, more than 100. Yeah,
All right.
and the
So,
thing is the point that bringing the senses in is absolutely right, because what that does is it makes it more real in the moment for us,
mm,
because so often we're not staying present, but
mm-hmm.
by bringing the senses in, it actually makes you be in the present.
So it's like a be here now.
Exactly. We're too distracted. There's too many things going on. And how often, like, for example, going out to a restaurant and you see people who are sitting at the table and they're not even interacting. They're sitting on their phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think to myself, why are you even in the restaurant? Just get takeout for
They're
that, right?
hungry.
I mean,
I
they're
don't know.
not being present with, and they're basically telling the other person that the phone is more important than that person sitting
I mean
across from you.
that could be a 7-hour discussion,
Oh,
and you're not
absolutely.
going to get me to argue with. Um, so let me tell you some situations where
Hmm.
I think look, I work with a lot of students.
Hmm.
I know these kids know the material,
Hmm.
and sometimes they struggle on tests because they get anxious.
Yep.
They question themselves. A lot of things you brought up. This can be applied on so many levels. At the academic level, there's a whole term in education called high stakes tests,
Right.
like the SAT. Why do they call them that? Because they have high stakes.
Hmm.
They're important. You're
Hmm.
taking 4 hours of your life that might determine 4 years of your life. So
Hmm.
it's expected and normal that people are going to have some anxiousness about these,
Right.
but it's how you cope with it. I think that's always the situation. Some of it's mental, some of it's physical. But I think the key here, and one of the things you're bringing to the table beautifully, is giving people just a simple approach to help to do it. Is there? Let me ask you one more question. I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of a wrap up. But what prevents if this is so simple? A minute, even 2 minutes of just kind of taking a little time for yourself and disconnecting from whatever. Why do you think more people just don't do it? Is it a societal thing? Like I don't know, it's like weak to be like a strong person and not admit you have stress. Why do you think people don't do? They get to a point where they have almost like a breakdown physically before they start to address it, and I'm subtracting out just the sheer amount of stress that people have broadly. I mean, look, this is COVID was here, kind of went away, it came back. I mean, I'm in a situation where they're starting schools down where I live again. So there's a baseline stress that I think we can agree is higher than it was a couple of years ago somehow. So sometimes you just get used to it. Oh yeah, like I can't see my friends. Oh well, yeah. But why do you think in more of a situation where people know they have a challenge, they know they're stressed, they know they have things that are affecting their health, maybe affecting their relationships, maybe affecting their academics, or affecting their business performance? Why do you think people wouldn't address it, especially when it can be done so simply? You don't need to go on Prozac or a medication. You got simple tools like you have. What might prevent somebody from seeking assistance like this?
There's several reasons for that. One is that they just don't realize it, that you can do it in just a couple minutes a day. Another one,
Mm-hmm.
as you kind of alluded to, Steve, was the stigma of,
Mm.
oh, I'm stressed. I'm admitting that I'm stressed. That's a sign of weakness. A lot of times, the environments that we work in are inherent to stress, and it just becomes the norm. And
Mm-hmm.
people realize that, oh, okay, it's just the way things are. Where I have seen also is that a lot of people don't take it seriously until something significantly negative happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
Either they, their relationship ends, or they lose a job because
Well,
of
they
it,
end up in
they
the
lose,
ICU.
or the ICU, the health, and that, like for me, as I mentioned earlier, being diagnosed with a chronic disease was not enough for me to say, oh, maybe I
Mm,
should change things. I just said, all right, give me the drugs. I need to, I don't have time to deal with this.
mm-hmm.
And so that's why when it happened to me more severely, I started looking at what resources were available. And what I found was that in most cases, it was always these things that took a lot of time. Who has time to read a 300-page book on yoga or meditation or deep breathing? The reality is, most of us, with everything that we're juggling, we have 5 minutes before something is going. We have to deal with something.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, why not give people an opportunity to have different tools that they can use, figure out what works for them? Because that's the other challenge is that if you say, okay, meditation, well, guess what? Meditation doesn't work for a lot of people. And so if you tell them to use meditation and it doesn't work for them, then you've given them nothing. How about, having a menu of a whole bunch of different ideas and tools, and you try one, and if it works, fantastic, run with it. If it doesn't, big deal. It took you a couple of minutes to try it. Next time, try a different one. And
Mm.
that's where the key is, because you want people to get a quick benefit from it, and then they realize, okay, you know what? I committed a couple minutes to this. It seemed to work. I'm going to be more willing to make the time even a couple minutes a day. And then if they do that regularly for a month, it becomes a habit. And that's where we really need to get to the habit so that our mindset changes when we're dealing with stressful situations.
How do people get a hold of you? Somebody wants to find out more about what you do
Sure,
or about your book.
absolutely.
Promote yourself here a little bit.
Sure. Best place to go is my website at petealexander.com, PeteAlexander.com.
Beautiful.
And
Excellent.
the book is there. It's
Now,
available
what's the
on
name of your
Amazon.
book?
Lighten Your Day. So,
Lighten
and
Your Day.
lighten is a
Light, not
seven,
enlighten, lighten.
no, lighten. So, and it's
Okay.
a 7-letter acronym basically that stands for the 7 areas of your
Oh,
life that generate stress.
which
So,
are, you want to list them?
sure. So livelihood or our
Okay.
career is the first one.
Livelihood. I got L.
Yep.
Okay.
So I is your imagination or your conscious mind, which is basically 5% of our minds, but it's where our inner critic lives.
Okay.
The
Okay.
G is, I call it your genius. That's your unconscious mind. The other 95% of your mind that is
Mm.
where our habits are formed, where our perception of the world lies. It's really where real change, long-term change is where that happens in the unconscious. So that's the genius. Then the H is for health, our physical health, which talked about earlier. Without our
Big,
health,
big
nothing
one.
else
Yeah.
matters, because people think about it. If you are sick and you can't do anything other than lie in bed, you're not going to be any good to your business. You're not going to be any good to your kids, your
Your
family
family.
members,
Right.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to be lying in bed. So take care of your
So
health.
T. Now we got a
T
T
is
here.
T's got to be time, of course,
I was
because we
going to say,
talked
but
about
I
yeah.
guessed it right. I got it right.
So time
Okay.
is critical because that's why most of the tips are 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
Then E is your environment, because when we are if we're working on something important, our environment needs to be conducive to our stress relief efforts. So you want to make sure that you have a comfortable place to sit, minimal distractions, etc. So our environment is critical. And last
And
but not least is
needs.
N. Nope. Your network of relationships. The people in your
Ooh.
life matter. So when you think about that, those are the people in your family. That is your friends. That is the people you work with. Those are all key people. So your network, you need to make sure that you don't take them for granted. And when we are stressed, we're more we're not going to be as empathetic. We're not going to be as attentive. We're going to be less patient with those people. So it's really important to make sure that our network of relationships is, in alignment with all the other aspects of the Light model.
Awesome. This is great. Pete Alexander, Professor Pete, I really appreciate it. Makes a great podcast. We are here to give you actions to help you on your journey to success. Getting too stressed isn't helping anybody. Not helping you. It's not helping people you work with, your family. A couple minutes a day. Listen to Pete. Check out his site, petealexander.com. Pete, anything we didn't cover you want to get into for a minute? I got one last thing. We're going to sign off.
Sure. Well, Steve, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I greatly appreciate your listeners tuning in. And really, the thing that I try and reinforce for everybody is don't trade your career or don't trade your health for your career, because that's a really bad trade.
Spoken from someone who's laying on a hospital bed with a 700 blood glucose level. I think he's got some credential there. Hey, you want to play everybody's favorite Make the Grade podcast game? The
Sure.
Fave Five. Okay.
Okay.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, and this is you're supposed to have some fun here. Okay. I'm going to say something. You tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Vacation place.
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Wow.
That's my number one on my bucket list right now.
Oh man, save that, because bucket list is another one. I'll have to get a new one. I'll have to get another one. So you've never been there, but you want to go there.
That's correct. I've been to Australia, but I haven't been to New Zealand.
Wow. Now, where do you live? I didn't even ask you.
Oh yeah, I'm outside of Seattle. I live.
That's
I
right.
live
That's
near
right.
the,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I live near the Olympic National Park, and actually,
Nice.
the background picture that I have is one of the lakes in the park.
Really? And actually, if you can't see it, it's beautiful. It's like it's sunset or sunrise. Beautiful.
Sunset.
So vacation place, New Zealand. All right, here we go. Ketchup, mustard, or salsa?
Salsa.
Spicy, like spicy.
Yep.
Recreational activity, and then don't say meditating.
No, hiking.
Hiking.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, where you live, that's got to be big. Hiking or maybe biking.
Hiking way more. Mountain biking, yes, it's a great place, but there's few places that are better to hike than where I live.
You near Mount Hood?
No, Mount Hood is actually pretty far from me.
I've hiked there. It's really nice.
That's what
Beautiful.
I heard. I've never done it.
Yeah, really. You might want to put that on your bucket list.
Okay.
Music. What kind of music you like?
Okay, this is an embarrassing one. My favorite music is disco.
Disco.
It's just
oh
because
my God. You are definitely the first one who said that on this
I know.
show.
And my kids are totally embarrassed, but I listen to that and it just, I get into the
Something like Staying Alive kind of disco.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Oh yeah. Are you kidding? The Saturday Night Fever album?
Soundtrack.
Fantastic.
Staying Alive. Wow,
Yep.
okay. I got to tell you, I may do this for 10 more years. I don't know. We're going to get another disco person.
They won't admit it. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Color, favorite color?
Green.
Green. That's my favorite color too. That's because it's my last name. I was going to say bucket list. That was 5. We're going to do bonus ones, usually bucket list, but we got New Zealand. Let's me think. I think one on the fly here. Actually, let me ask what I asked my last person. Hey, you want to ask me one?
Sure. Can I ask the same question?
Yeah, you can go same ones. Go ahead.
Sure. What's your favorite, recreational activity?
I like to bicycle. I'm a road and a mountain bike guy.
Good. Do you have a preference between road or mountain bike?
I really like mountain biking better, but where I live, it's not great.
And
there's a lot of nice roads where I live. And so I end up doing that more. But I think if I could only do one, it'd be off-road.
There you go. I think the same thing. I still have a road bike, but where I live here, it is not a bike friendly area.
And that's not unfriendly. It's just, I live near a city and it's flat, and beauty of mountain bike is getting in the woods and you're getting, killing yourself climbing up to the top of a hill so you get a beautiful view, and then you cruise down, and that's the fun part of it. Not riding through a flat trail on brick, through a man-made park. That's not fun mountain biking.
Yeah, there's a park that's not far from me in the county next door that I've never seen this before, but they have single track trails that not only are hikers on and bicyclists on, but also horses and motorbikes. I can't believe.
Oh, like electric bikes.
No, I'm talking
Like motorcycles?
gas motorcycles. Yeah,
Hmm.
dirt bikes. And, can you imagine a dirt bike and a horse coming up against each other?
That's
I
probably not
mean,
a good.
I can't imagine the liability there, but they allow it.
All right. Mm. Mm. Dessert.
Ooh, that would have to be tiramisu.
Tiramisu. Man, you're disco and tiramisu, and Mr. Professor Pete is happy on a green plate with a side of salsa.
There we go. Oh, not
New
salsa
Zealand
and
man, and his life is complete.
I don't think I'd say eating salsa and tiramisu on the same plate, but
Well,
I
I
could.
mean, in the same meal, you get some chips
Exactly.
with salsa, you get tiramisu dessert. Wrap it up. All right, listen, seriously, Pete, thank you so much for coming on, sharing the time with us. All I can say is this: your health is huge, right? I mean, not you, Pete, but I mean everybody, right? If you don't take your health seriously, and I know if you're 15 listening to this, I feel fine all the time, but trust me, as you start getting older, it's tougher, and you got to invest in your health, whether it's exercising or walking or lifting. I don't know, whatever. Biking's my exercise of choice, but you got to do something. It's got to become part of your routine. And I'm going to suggest that the kind of things that Pete brought in here can be just as easy to do. In fact, you can even combine them. One of the things I love about biking, not necessarily on the street, is you just get into a zone. And, it's great. Like, there's some really, like Valley Forge Park, I love to bike in. It's near, you may never been to Valley Forge. It's where George Washington was, right?
Hey.
Famous winter of 1777. But anyway, it's just a beautiful place, and it's usually not very much traffic. So it's easy to kind of get into one of these kind of zones where you're conscious, but you're not conscious, and you're just doing your thing. That's really beautiful. All right. Listen, again, if you want to get a hold of Pete, PeteAlexander.com, check him out. Pete, once again, appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up here. And thanks again for being on the Make the Grade podcast. So here we go. The Make the Grade podcast. We are about giving you actions to help you to accelerate your journey to success. I am Dr. Stephen Green. My guest today was Professor Pete Alexander, PeteAlexander.com. Check it out. See what he's got to offer. And we will see you next episode.
You've been listening to Make the Grade with the Success Doctor, Stephen Green. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. For more resources and support, please visit makethegrade.net.